NBC News has exclusively learned that the newly elected incoming New York Attorney General plans to launch some sweeping investigations into President Trump, into his family. Letitia James tells NBC News, quote, "We will use every area of the law to investigate President Trump and his business transactions and that of his family as well." She plans to look into the following: Donald Trump's real estate holdings in New York, that June 2016 Trump Tower meeting with a Russian official, any government subsidies that Donald Trump received, whether he's in violation of the Emoluments Clause, the Trump Foundation.
My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law. And it is my responsibility and my duty and my job to enforce it. The law is both powerful and fragile, and today in court, we will prove our case. I thank you all for being here, and again, justice will prevail. Thank you.
Just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump and his second term, because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time. And we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights. And I promise you that. So think long and hard before you want to violate President Trump's constitutional rights or any other American's constitutional rights. It's not going to happen again.
We've been warning people on the show, Mike. This isn't the same Trump administration. Stop messing around. Don't rig elections. Don't illegally vote. Don't try the funny business, because we know the team this time and they are not effing around.
Senator, I'm going to ask you to stand by for me for just 1 second. And I would like to come back to the senator to get her to react to this immediately. But we do need to get to this breaking news out of the White House with Kristen Holmes. Kristen, I understand we have some legal breaking news.
Yeah, we have just learned that New York Attorney General Letitia James, who obviously brought the charges and won against President Donald Trump, has just been indicted by the Department of Justice. This was a case that President Trump wanted to be brought. It's a mortgage fraud case, and it's also what led to the leaving of the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. Eric.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost.
Boy. So we got to talk about some great news, okay? I am proud to announce that nobody is above the law, including Trump deranged Democrats like Letitia James, who just got slapped with an indictment, a criminal indictment, presumably over mortgage fraud allegations after the Trump DOJ presented their case to a grand jury. Okay, they decided there was enough evidence there to go ahead and indict Letitia James, okay? And as you guys should be aware, nobody should be surprised, the mainstream liberal media, outlets like BS Now, they're now boo-hoo-whine and crying foul, right, over what is happening to Letitia James.
Hang on, I'm sorry to interrupt you. New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted. Andrew Weissman, your reaction?
I think that I want to sort of address the people who might look at this and say this is sort of tit for tat, that you see that in the Democratic administration, you see them going after Republicans, and this is Republicans going after Democrats. This is where, one, even if two wrongs don't make a right, even if that were true, but this is where facts matter. In the Letitia James case that she brought in New York, there was a trial. Facts were adduced. We all could look at those facts, and Donald Trump had a chance, an opportunity to have due process and to hear all of that. Here, the process by which this has been undertaken, like the process that was undertaken with respect to James Comey, tells you that career people and even Trump-appointed people did not think that there was evidence. There were not facts that justified this. And I think a perfect symbol of the fact that this is different, that what we're seeing is different. It is not normal. It is not everyone does it, is to take a look at Abby Lowell. Abby Lowell is the defense lawyer for Letitia James. He was also the defense lawyer for Hunter Biden. In the Biden administration, the Department of Justice actually charged and convicted the sitting president's son. And Abby Lowell represented him and defended him and lost that trial.
Yeah.
And he is now defending Letitia James. And to me, when people say it's tit for tat, it's like, no, in prior administrations, and by the way, Republican and Democratic administrations under normal times, which I agree with Mark are gone, under normal times in those administrations, there is no politics that is supposed to be considered. I'm not saying it's never considered and there aren't. There's aberrations.
No,
that's not how you're built.
Right. Andrew, let me bring Carol Leonnig back in. Carol Leonnig broke the news today exclusively that a grand jury was hearing evidence against Tish James. We have now heard the news that New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted. Carol Leonnig.
Yeah, a few minutes ago we confirmed that she was indicted by a grand jury in Alexandria of at least one count of bank fraud, Nicole, and the return was rather speedy. 4 o'clock was when the grand jury was supposed to come back out and present their information to Halligan. There was a four-person in the courtroom along with Halligan, and they released their decision. I will tell you there's one other really interesting element to this that I'm hearing from sources, which is that this grand jury made its decision and listened to the presentation on its very first day in the box. In other words, grand juries sit sometimes for weeks and weeks. This grand jury was impaneled today, and this was their first case and their first decision.
That the evidence against Letitia James, which, by the way, they never actually go into detail about the evidence, right? They never do that, okay, for whatever reason, okay? I was told that evidence is so weak that prosecutor after prosecutor said, well, see, we're not going to touch this, right? We can't touch this because the evidence is so weak, right? This is what I was told, okay? Just for the prosecutor that did take the case to the grand jury to basically get an indictment immediately, right? That is how strong the evidence is, because again, she signed a power of attorney. We're talking about, again, she signed a legal document as the Attorney General of New York stating unequivocally that she resides in Virginia, that this is her primary home, right? I don't understand how you get around that, right? How do you get around that? Not only that, she has a pattern of behavior of doing this. So again, it was obvious to me that she's guilty. Of course she's guilty. I'm not surprised by the indictment. But again, these people told us when Trump got indicted, see, no, you don't understand. He got indicted by a grand jury, right? Therefore, it's legit. You got to just let it play out in court, right? It's legit. There's no weaponization here. Now, all of a sudden, they're boo-hoo-whine and cry. Apparently, it is very easy to get a grand jury indictment, right? Apparently, it's super easy. You can indict a ham sandwich, apparently, right? So again, if now we're accepting the argument, I want you guys to understand, if we're accepting the argument that this is illegitimate, despite the grand jury indictment, right? This is all bogus, politically motivated. Then we got to accept that for what happened to President Trump, right? We got to accept the same thing, that the grand jury indictment means nothing, right? Because that's what they're saying right here. That's what they said about Comey. So if the grand jury indictment doesn't mean anything, if it's easy to have somebody indicted, then I guess logically we could assume that the same thing happened to President Trump. But see, when it's a Democrat, it's always different. It's always different when it's a Democrat. It's funny how that works. But if we're going to assume, like they told us just a couple years ago, that, hey, grand jury indictment means that there's some evidence there that, hey, it should go to trial, right? What happened to that logic here? Right? Why is it not okay to just let it play out? Why is it not okay to let it play out? Because, again, when Trump was going through this, it was, well, see, you got to let it play out. Who cares about Trump spending millions and millions and millions of dollars, right, to defend himself? Who cares about that, right? Doesn't matter. Now, all of a sudden, they want you to be concerned about, well, see, they might be innocent, but they got to spend all this money, right? They got to spend all this money on lawyers to defend themselves, right? Like, but you weren't concerned about that when President Trump was going through this. You was cheering it on. And what comes around goes around. And again, the funniest part about this is that these people pretend like, oh, well, see, you don't understand. Democrats never did this, right? The Democrats never weaponized. They never weaponized their office to go after their political opponents. It's like, bruh, Letitia James is the poster child for the Democrats who openly campaigned on going after Trump, weaponizing her office to investigate Trump. She campaigned on this.
You also intend to prosecute him after he is out of office, correct?
Joy, again, our investigation currently is civil in nature. It is not criminal. In the event that we uncover any activity or conduct, in the event that we uncover any conduct, oh yes,
but will you go ahead with the civil suits?
Yes, our civil suit will continue, whether he's president or not. And so after January 20th at 12 o'clock, our investigation will continue, Joy.
There's no way a potential pardon for Trump or his three eldest kids would shield them from anything you're investigating. Am I right? That's what you just said, I believe.
Correct. He cannot pardon himself. What he could do is step down and allow the Vice President Pence, to pardon him. In all likelihood, I suspect that he will pardon his family members, his children, his son-in-law, and individuals in his administration, as well as some of his close associates. And then I suspect at some point in time, he will step down and allow the vice president to pardon him. Now, it's important to understand he is pardoned from federal crimes, but he is not pardoned from state crimes. Last year, I introduced a bill in the state legislature, which would close the pardon loophole so that individuals such as the President of the United States would not evade justice. It's important that we have this check on presidential powers. And in the legislature, the state legislature, I'm so happy they passed that bill, and it is now the law in the state of New York. President Trump cannot avoid justice in the great state of New York.
If Democrats like Slotkin are going to come out today and whine about selective prosecutions over Tish James, her entire career is built on the selective prosecution of one man. Now, I also believe what Elliot said. There's a process here. Everybody gets their day in court. Obviously, a grand jury saw enough evidence to bring charges. We don't know what they are, but a grand jury looked at this and says, okay, there's something here. She gets to go to court just like Comey, just like anyone else. But to me, it's just not going to fly to boo-hoo over selective prosecutions on this particular person who promised in her campaigns, who went after him on things, as Jonah said, that had no business ever happening, if not but for the man's last name being Trump. So I'm not going to.
How is that not a two wrongs make a right argument?
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying she gets her day in court. I'm saying a grand jury saw enough evidence to bring charges, and I'm saying she gets to go to court and tell her side of the story.
Yeah, so once again, Scott Jennings is the voice of reason on CNN, okay, where he is making it pretty clear that Letitia James is not somebody a Democrat should be boo-hoo-ing and crying about when you talk about weaponization, because she weaponized her office. And I mean, let's be honest, she's really just getting karma, right? That's what's happening to her right now, because she made a career on going after President Trump. So I don't know if the DOJ is being weaponized against her or what, but what I do know is that, hey, she told me that nobody's above the law. And she said that, hey, if you have committed crimes, okay, there should be investigations. If you didn't do anything wrong, then what's wrong with an investigation, right? If you didn't do anything wrong. She got investigated. Apparently, the evidence was so overwhelming that the grand jury said, indict immediately, right? Indicted immediately, charged with one count of bank fraud and one count of false statements to a financial institution after Trump publicly called for her Justice Department appointees to bring charges against her. Yeah, you gotta love how NBC News throws that in there, right? As if that has anything to do with the actual evidence, right? The indictment alleges James falsely claimed that a home in Norfolk, Virginia was her second residence, allowing her to obtain favorable loan terms, and that she rented the property to a family of 3. James vehemently denied the charges against her. Quote, these charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements made clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost. She said in a statement, the president's actions are a grave violation of our constitutional order and have drawn sharp criticisms from members of both parties. Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? I think Letitia James is cooked, right? I think she's cooked. I told you guys that they're going to get one, right? I told you. It's going to be Letitia James, Shifty Schiff, Comey. Like, I think they're going to get some convictions, right? I really do, because I think these people are guilty as hell, okay? I want to see a mug shot of Letitia James, right? That's what I want to see. I want to see the Letitia James mug shot, okay? Her mug shot is definitely going on the shirt. It's definitely going on the shirt. For sure. For sure. So let me know what you guys think. And again, just remember, nobody is above the law, right? It's a great day for law and order in America. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.